रिकॉर्ड करोगे आप?
हाँ कर दिया, ऑन कर दिया।
बट अभी मत करो, टाइम है 2:30 का, आई मीन 4 o'clock का मीटिंग है ना।
So Parth, just to ask you, I
Yeah,
haven't attended open house any of it up till
Yeah.
now, but I was very much curious to know about internal audit. So just to ask you, so what up till now, what has been the most exciting open house, maximum number of head counts, kind of a thing? No.
See, there are many factors that actually determine how many people are tuning in. One of them is weekday, weekend, and timing.
Timing, correct, correct. Agree.
Fairly, we have a good attendance across the open houses. 70-80 का head count रहता है. So expecting a similar head count even today.
Because from my batch, I passed out recently, right, July 21.
Yeah.
So the craze of finance is इतना ज़्यादा ना कि stat audit and internal audit is like, okay, what else? It is like very mainstream considered nowadays. So I don't know. So I just wanted to know, so, okay, are there more people tuning up in finance related open houses, or people do attend stat audit, internal audit, etc.?
It again depends on what exactly you want to do. See, when you are in the stage of figuring out things, it's better you stick something to like consulting. Okay, stat audit kar lo, internal audit kar lo, or you go for management consulting, because there you get to look at many things. And now if you want to join a corporate, it's better to start with finance, something in finance. So many factors on those lines. Very vague answer from my end also, because it's a choice driven answer.
So what's your profile right now?
So right now I am looking for opportunities. I left the job due to some personal reasons, not issues. So, but I was a part of the corporate finance team, controlling FP&A and tax, corporate tax.
Okay, great.
Mix of all. You don't get bored with one kind of work, and there is always a lot to learn. So probably, we'll start in the interest of time. It's 4.
Yeah, actually.
Yeah. If you need, you take it ahead. I'm there if you need. Amay has also joined.
So I guess people are joining, so we'll just wait for a minute and then.
Okay, sure. You take it ahead.
I guess there are 23 participants already. So I guess we'll start.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll start. So good afternoon, everyone. It is great to have everyone right now. And I'll first start with introducing myself, and then we'll move ahead. So hello, everyone. My name is Neil Randeria. I am a chartered accountant by profession, and I cleared my CA final exams in July 2021, the latest attempt. And professionally speaking, I am getting into practice. So my dad is a practicing cost accountant, which is why, as we know, cost accountants are also authorized to do internal audits, which is why I was more curious to know more about it from Tejashree. And along with practice, I am also interested into academics. So I am teaching CFA level 1 and CA students. That's it from my side. So let's move on to the highlight of today's open house. We have Tejashree Prasanna today. She has done her articleship from Deloitte in Audit and Risk Division, and post qualification, she was into corporate accounts for a couple of years. Later, she worked as a financial planning analyst, and currently she is working as a senior internal auditor. So I welcome you on behalf of everyone, Tejashree. Please, you can tell us something about yourself and how you got into internal audit. Was it your plan initially, or it during the course of your career you opted to go into that? So yeah, Tejashree, over to you.
Okay, thanks Neil for introducing me. Good afternoon, everyone. Parth, thank you so much for giving me this opportunity to talk. So when I was discussing with Parth, he said, "Hey, are you free?" I mean, Parth and I were colleagues, and Parth said, "I'm running this platform that sort of mentors people, and it'll be wonderful to have somebody from the internal audit team to try and talk about the kind of career opportunities that exist, and also kind of bust some myths that go with internal audit, because now mein hi audit hai, right?" So I thought it was a great opportunity, and I'm so happy to be here. Before I get started on this whole process, let me quickly introduce myself. Like Neil said, I'm a chartered accountant by profession. I haven't per se done any other qualification. I don't have any other qualifications like CPA or CIA as such. But I started my journey, like Neil said, I did my internship with Deloitte Haskins and Sells for 3 years in statutory risk and advisory division. So I did like hardcore statutory audit for 3 years. And then when I started looking for opportunities, I bumped into the current organization that I'm in right now. So the company that I work for is called Bungie India Private Limited. It's basically a private subsidiary of an MNC that is headquartered in the United States. And when I started as a management trainee. So I was in this process of figuring out what to do. I applied in a lot of consulting jobs as well, like due diligence, forensic audit, etc. I also got into the big fours, and then finally I decided to part ways. Kyuki, one, I was done with the whole consulting environment and the big four culture. I don't know how many of you have already been a part of Big Four or have had experiences like mine, but thode time baad you realize that work-life balance, it's very difficult to maintain a work-life balance in a Big Four. So when I decided to part ways and come to the industry, I was still in the process of figuring out. I didn't know whether I wanted to get away straight into taxation or treasury, because these two are specifically the areas where one tends to become a subject matter expert. So treasury में ही 10 साल 15 साल लोग निकालते हैं, tax में ही 10-15 साल निकालते हैं, and they become subject matter experts. So I was very clear from the get-go that I wanted an all-round sort of a experience. I wanted to spend some time in different performing different roles, different departments, understanding the pulse of the business, and then moving upwards. So when I started as a management trainee in this current company. So if you're aware, the process of management trainee is that you spend you're handed over certain projects, usually typically between 2 to 3 months of time. And then you finish that project, you're working with the senior, the department head or the HOD. And then you keep moving across one project after the other. So usually it's a typical live business project that they give you. And then you're working towards finding a solution. So once I finished that, then I got into the corporate accounting side of it. Typically how everybody enters the industry. Some of them get lucky. Some of them, if they know exactly what they want, they get into specific functions like taxation, treasury, or sometimes even if you're lucky, you get into a commercial role. But usually these are the roles that are largely open that for freshers. So I got into corporate taxation accounting. So did everything that was sort of basic, like preparing balance sheets, preparing accounts, handling the auditors, getting the audited statements done. When I was still there, IndAS was being implemented. So we were also in the first round of the first phase where the company had to implement. So it was still all new, trying to learn the process, trying to understand the gaps, fill in the gaps. So I did my IndAS implementation. And apart from that, of course, you have like the monthly closing, the monthly not account keeping. We had a separate team for doing all of that. I was not really punching in transactions, but more like a reviewer as a controller sort of a role. And then apart from that, you also get to be a part of the SOX audits. You get to handle these internal auditors. So once I finished my stint there, I moved into this role called FP&A, which is financial planning analysis. So in that, I was a part of the FP&A team that is more into preparing the budgets, making capex, like if you have any new investments to do, whether seeing that these investments make sense, don't make sense, what is the ROI, if you have to invest, how much do you invest, how much is it going to take for you to, the typical financial cash flow models that you do while you're evaluating a business. So it could be a business, it could be a new investment within the company itself, it could be a small investment. So I did all of this, and you're also a part of these 5-year, 10-year strategic growth plans that every business is like. For example, if you're in a business, you're doing well today, but what next? What after 5 years? What after 10 years? How do you expand? Today, your market share is 10%. How do you get that up to 25%? So you're basically working with a lot of cross-functional teams, right from the factories to your commercial teams, to your marketing, to your sales teams, to get all of these numbers and crunch these up and make a model that makes sense so that you can show it to the management being CEO. But for us, management was also our parent company, which was headquartered in the US. So once all of this happened for me, I think in my company, at least I have a total of close to 7 years of experience right now. I spent close to 5 years doing all of this. And then for me, I was trying to figure out, okay, what's next? So when I was deciding what next, I had an opportunity to either move out of the company or find something within the company. And along this, let's say, path of finding what's next, I came across internal audit. So I know a lot of you might have questions on, oh, but it's boring having done FP&A. Why did you jump back into this? But I think internal audit is nothing like, unless of course you've done internal audit again during your internship period. I think internal audit in the industry, at least, is like, it's extremely exciting, it's extremely challenging, it gives you the best of both worlds. So for me, the motivation to move into internal audit was basically, my company is an American MNC that has presence in about 41 countries, and being a part of internal audit meant that I would now move out from just focusing on Indian operations to Europe, North America, Asian operations. And in India, we had a very small presence, while globally we're like a Fortune 500 company. So the length and breadth of the company is pretty huge. So I didn't want to stay restricted to the Indian operations, to stay very restricted to the manufacturing segment of my company. I wanted to expand to trading, risk management, credit, operations, etc. So this was my way of choosing internal audit, because then it was widening up the streams for me. Having spent some time in internal audit, where I also get to see a bit of taxation, treasury, risk management, inventory, plant controls, laws, compliance, everything for me tomorrow. In fact, right now, even today, I can easily look up any other job within the organization that has nothing to do with audit or corporate control and easily move into that. So this was my personal reason why I got into internal audit. Now, before I take in questions, I just want to ask you one simple, just to get an understanding of what you guys think internal audit is. So when I say internal audit, what comes to your mind? You can either unmute yourself or probably send it on the chat box. But what do you think of when you hear internal audit?
It would be better if you unmute yourself and tell, because it's not possible to go through the chat box right now. So
okay, somebody says vouching, preparing reports. What else?
I heard somewhere about the internal audit. I think someone on YouTube tell me this definition of internal audit. It's like everyone knows how the dish is prepared, but internal audit is a job in which you tell how much ingredients are less in the dish and what should be there to make it more better.
Right, absolutely right. I really like this analogy that you shared, Mohit. Perfect. Understanding the whole process, correct, Ritika? What else? Evaluating processes. What
deep
else?
knowledge of a particular business.
Sorry, could you repeat that, Vivek?
Deep knowledge of a particular business, going to deep.
You're right, absolutely right. Deep knowledge of a particular business. Okay, moving on to the next question. Why are, if let's say you have two opportunities right in front of you, FP&A and internal audit, and you get to choose between them, why? Tell me, how many of you would be inclined towards internal audit?
I.
Not many, because that's exactly why we have this session, right? Okay, what scares you about internal audit? Let's quickly get some answers. Or what do you think are the boring aspects of internal audit?
For me,
Somebody also says analyzing root cause and giving recommendations. Rishabh, perfect. I like that. Okay, what scares you about internal audit, or what makes you think that internal audit is a very boring job? Routine work on field. Okay. The
so
next.
for me,
Vouching.
Vouching again. Okay. Yes.
Quarter
Next.
after quarter
Okay.
getting the
Work
same
becomes
process.
monotonous. Okay.
I would say quarter after quarter getting into the same process and getting into the same loop of checking the things again and again from the same perspective.
Correct. Okay. That's monotony. Got it. We may not have in-depth knowledge about everything. Okay. The fear of not knowing things and yet trying to come or put yourself across as the consultant.
Satiety.
Confined to a particular business. Okay. Okay. Yes, Rishabh.
Satiety.
Satiety. Sorry, I missed that. Yes. Working on same industry for years. Okay, Samiksha. Okay. What else? Okay. So let me start addressing one thing by another. So somebody start with vouching. Okay. So I will not say there is no vouching at all in internal audit. Of course, you have to look into the books of accounts, but it's just not limited to vouching. Okay. The kind of job that you do in statutory audit is very different compared to the kind of job that you do in internal audit. The basic difference being that in statutory audit, essentially what you do, if somebody says, I have 100 rupees of purchases, you go and say whether you see 100 rupees or not. So for that, what is the first thing that you do? You understand the process. So you will say that, okay, for a process, you need a three-way match, a PO hona chahiye, invoice hona chahiye, GRN hona chahiye, then barabar payment hua hai ki nahi, wo check hona chahiye. And how do you check that? By selecting samples. And depending upon how large or complex the industry is, you take 75 samples, 100 samples at the most for one entire year. तो आपके पास 100 samples होते हैं, multiplied by at least 4 documents, which means 400 documents is what you are checking. So I don't deny that there is no vouching in internal audit, but first things to start with, itna vouching hum nahi karte. Maximum we end up taking a sample size of 20-25 tops. Okay. Now somebody said that understanding the process, which is very true. I think that's the most foremost or like the most important difference between statutory audit and internal audit. Statutory audit hum sab upar se pata karte, but the same thing when you come to internal audit. For example, we took the example of purchases, right? So here you understand the process. Okay, three-way match to hona hi chahiye. But apart from that, what else do you see? You see the kind of purchases that are made, whether an organization matrix exists, whether if you're purchasing something, does it have proper bids? Was it the most competitive bid? Why did you select something that was 100 and not 120? Or if you selected something that was 120, why not 100? Then you also go into in-depth analysis. Like, for example, let's say that for a particular production process, you need 2 chemicals. So 2 chemicals में से सिर्फ एक को क्यों चुना? आपने B को क्यों नहीं चुना? Right? So it involves a very in-depth process understanding, because like Mohit said, it's not about statutory audit will say that, okay, 10 dishes hai ki nahi hai, but it's not like that in internal audit. You actually deep dive, you take one particular dish, you deep dive inside it and say, okay, aaj agar hame samosa banana tha, does it have all the ingredients? Has it been done well? Can there be any process improvement, right? So this kind of process knowledge is what basically you're looking at or targeting at in internal audit, which means that there is less vouching that you do and more analysis that you do, because you're checking samples. See, when there are when there are like thousands of transactions in a day, by checking 100 samples, you don't get to know anything. The only way you get to know anything about what's happening in purchases is first and foremost through data analytics. Now, data analytics is like a really hot topic. A lot of engineers are getting into it. A lot of CAs are getting into it. And this is where everything is big data analytics, right? This is exactly what you do. You sit down, you break it, you say, you analyze, you're like, acha, you were saying that only A approves, but I see that B is also approving. You say that purchases were made only from Jan to September, but I see that November to December maybe ho raha. So you analyze the data in such a way through the process understanding that you have, find out gaps, and only these gaps, like we call them outliers, right? Only these outliers do you then go back to the management and say, okay, you said this, but I saw something else. Give me the proof or give me the documentation behind it. So it's not vouching. It's largely like 90% data analytics and 10% vouching when it comes to internal audit. Okay, that's the first and foremost. Second thing, somebody said that, so this is sort of addressing what Rishabh got it correctly, saying that you're analyzing the root cause, and through the outliers that you have, then you say, okay, what went right, what went wrong, outliers tha, lekin was it a business exception? So this also enhances your knowledge of the business, because to sit here, like for example, in CA books that we have studied, it's all theoretical knowledge. Practical बहुत कम होता है. In reality, everything that you practice is not what you've studied theoretically, right? You have to be smart, you have to get your work done, and in order to get your work done, you also have to come up with roundabouts, procedures, policies that are also compliant. So when you're doing all this, that gives you a in-depth understanding of the business, because our business, kidhar bhi aap jao, and no matter where you are, unless and until you don't understand the business, there's like zero value addition that you can provide. Otherwise, you'll be like, "Ha, law ne ye bola hai, aapko yahi karna hai." But you don't need a chartered accountant, or you don't need somebody in the internal audit team to read up the law and tell you. I mean, to be honest, any person who can understand English and who has like a decent knowledge of commerce will tell you, "Ha, ye law ke hisab se aisa hona chahiye." But that's not what we do, right? So we work with the business continuously to see, okay, this is what it should happen, but these are the practical scenarios. What's the bottleneck? How can we make it better? So it's always like 90% data analytics, 10% finding out, vouching and finding out what went wrong, and then coming back to the recommendations. Somebody here told me that it was a very interesting answer. Monotonous. Monotonity is something that you fear comes up with internal audit. So let me just quickly give you, share some experience. This is basically the fourth profile that I'm handling as a CA, right, in my whole journey, because I'm also going to count statutory audit, because that was also a part of what I did. Statutory audit, corporate account, the most fancy FP&A, and now internal audit. In any role that you go, at some given point in time, you have to do very routine tasks. You have to do something day after day. Even treasury, you go, right? It's not like every day you're going to find like a really new interesting thing that you're going to work out with. It's not like every day हम IPO के लिए जा रहे हैं, या every day हम market से पैसा उठा रहे हैं, or not every day do you go for fundraising, right? So these are all like always one or out of the blue or one time things that you get to do, but rest it's all like day-to-day operations. And the thing with day-to-day operations is that it's like extremely monotonous. But something that I've seen in internal audit, for example, somebody here was telling me that if you're doing something that is what you keep on doing quarter after quarter, day after day, that is not how internal audits within the company at least work. So now in internal audit, you can either go to a big four consulting or even a mid-size firm or a small size firm, or you can go to the industry. Right now, when you go to a big four, yeah, mid-size firm, kya hota hai? Somebody from the industry, let's say Tata, comes to you and hires you, right? And they say that, acha, you be the internal auditors, and then from every quarter on quarter, you have to perform the same, let's say, tasks, just like how you would do in statutory audit. So that piece, I understand. There could be some monotony, and in some cases, you can even walk up to your partner and say, "Sir, मैंने ये किया है, मुझे अभी ये नहीं करना है. I want to change in the industry, or I want to change in the role." But since I've been doing internal audit in the industry, I can tell you it is very different. Okay, at least for me, usually what we do is, like I said, I also stand to benefit because my organization is so large and huge that I don't get to do the same thing again back to back. So what happens with me is that usually how an internal audit plan is drawn. They analyze the balance sheet. They say that these are the critical risk themes, like you have inventory, you have payables, you have treasury, everything related to credit. Then you have everything that's related to my companies, like largely to trading. So then you have trading. Then there are these hot topics like corporate social responsibility, sustainability. All these topics keep coming up. So we divide them into buckets, and we say, okay, under these buckets, which countries or which segments do we have to look at? So because of this, I'm not working on any single project more than once in a year. At the most, I'm working on the same risk theme more than once in a year. So for example, I'll give you an example of the kind of projects that I've done in the past 1 year. I've done one related to credit risk assessment, which means that you're assessing the credit worthiness of a company. You're seeing whether the credit limits that were assigned were correct. You're seeing that your exposure that the company took on that, let's say, third party vendor was correct or not. right? Whether there were any breaches in that, what the compliance was. After that, I moved into an inventory audit. After that, I moved into something called as the corporate social responsibility or the sustainability audit. Then I moved into a labor law audit. Now I'm back to inventory, right? So I've never worked. I typically do about 5 to 6 projects in a year, and very rarely do I do the same project time and again. I don't do that. So every 2 3 months, it's like I'm in a consulting environment, but getting the best of the industry, because in industry, it means that your Saturday Sunday is not blocked. You don't have to work on Saturday Sundays. Your hours are also very limited to an extent, not like you're slogging because you have some kind of a backlog, right? So I get the best of both worlds here, but I'm also playing a role of a consultant, plus taking and reaping benefits of being in the industry, because you get to understand deeply about the business that you're in. And at least for me, what I would recommend is, if some of you are very worried about having a monotonous role in internal audit, but are very keen to take up internal audit, what I would recommend you do is try and look for opportunities in a company that are really widely spread, like ITC. ITC has a lot of businesses. Unilever has a lot of businesses. They're into food, beverages, non-food. Something like Tata, you have chemicals, power, utilities, services. Now even Air India is under that. So when you are a part of a large organization like this, you get to see the length and breadth of the organization. You get to move across. It's not very restricted. Internal audit only in chemicals. Aisa nahi hota. You are an internal auditor for Tata Group of companies, right? So then you keep moving across the breadth and width. So there is no monotonity. You get to hear and see other businesses. You get to network, which is great. Otherwise, I think it is very restricted to just the team that you work with. So even when I was in FP&A, I would talk to sales guys, plant guys, commercial guys, no doubt. But now that I'm in internal audit, I also talk to the person who's on the floor. If I go to a plant, I'm talking to him. I'm like, nahi, aap mujhe batao. I go to a plant, I say, security ka guy, nahi, aap mujhe batao ki ye kya ho raha hai. And not just the people at the lower level, right? People at the lower level is where you get information from, where you understand the ground and practical realities of the business. But you also get to work with the top senior management. You're sitting across them, across the table, and saying, these are the findings, these are the observations, these are the recommendations, tell us. So this is like constantly trying to work out. It's not like you're waging a war, or it's not like trying to prove I am right. That's not how or where or the kind of attitude an internal auditor should have. An internal auditor should always be like, how do I understand the business? How do I understand the process? How do I see, can I find and identify gaps? And how can I add value to the management? So there's this constant need for you to add value. So when there's constant need for you to add value, you have to obviously read more, understand more, talk to the experts, see what works, what doesn't work, which also means that you're expanding your knowledge. So if you're scared about being stuck in one industry, one stream, one company, I don't think it's true. Internal audit, in fact, lets you move freely across industries because the processes are largely the same. So, for example, let's say I'm in a manufacturing company to do with edible oils. Nothing is going to stop me to move to an organization like Reliance or Tata or Unilever, because at the end of the day, it's similar processes, right? Of course, there might be a constraint for me to move from, let's say, internal audit manufacturing to internal audit financial services, because then the kind of, let's say, processes that you're looking at, it's different, but it still doesn't mean that I will not be considered for the job. Because at the end of the day, there are a lot of elements that are very common. And it's always about how you can add value to the management. Right. I'm just going to pause here quickly. If anyone gets opportunity to work in GDS or any big four in business consulting, internal audit, will it be better to take up the opportunity? Also, is it wise to shift from indirect tax department to big four for the above role? Okay. So opportunity to work in business consulting, I think you should take it up if you if consultancy is what you're looking at. So there are a lot of opportunities or benefits being in a big four. Sorry, let me do this once before I get to start. Before I answer these questions, I will just pause here to see if anybody else has any more doubt about internal audit, or if you're scared, or any worries that I didn't sort of address already. Okay, I'll take the silence as a yes. One more thing before I quickly move to the questions. The second thing that I probably forgot to ask was I work for an MNC, which means that I'm not just a resource for India. I'm a resource for Europe and Asia. Unfortunately, the COVID hit. For those of you who like to travel, for those of you who don't like to stay limited to a particular desk, like don't have a typical desk job, also want to have like also not travel extensively, I think this is the perfect space to be in. Before COVID stuck, I was in Malaysia, I was in Singapore, I was in Vietnam. If COVID didn't happen, I was going to travel to Spain, Turkey, China, in fact Italy. My team traveled to Italy, but I couldn't because I'm in Asia and the cases were really high. I'm not saying that this is what should motivate you to move into internal audit, but it's just not one process that you're learning. For example, I'm doing two inventory. I'm between two projects right now. Both of them had to do with inventory and inventory controls. The difference being that the last one had to do with inventory Italy, and this one has to do with inventory India. So even if I'm doing the same risk theme, but it's across different geographies. So nothing is similar, and even in my company, the business is not similar. The business is different. The structure is different. The scale is different. And of course, the geography is different. The people are different. The laws are different. So even though I know that, okay, inventory may, I have to see whether FIFO basis pe ja raha hai, whether inventory is being valuated correctly, whether inventory count barabar ho raha hai ki nahi ho raha hai, whether scale operations are happening. Even though at the end of the day, a lot of core processes are very same, yet nothing is same because I'm talking to a different management. I'm talking to a people where the laws are so different. I'm talking to a business where एक side पे oil को crush करते हैं, दूसरे side पे सिर्फ manufacture करके bottle करते हैं. It's like extremely different processes. Okay, so if you're somebody who's really interested, and I think the younger, not that when you get older you shouldn't try for this, but the younger you are, you should definitely go in for such kind of experiences for two reasons. One is that you also tend to, if not for international exposure, I got lucky, but if not for international exposure, at least you get to travel a bit. You're talking, you're moving across different geographies. You have an opportunity to talk to people more than one geography. It's very important to know because in India itself, we're so diverse as a country, and you can imagine how diverse we are internationally, right? And in internal audit, it's not like we restrict just to inventory, right? We're also getting into the local law compliance. Mine is a US company. I have to constantly also see that if you're compliant with all US laws. So there are multiple country laws that you're getting familiar with. There are multiple country legal experts that you're talking with, country experts that you're talking with. So the whole networking, the whole creating visibility for yourself increases substantially the minute you're in audit, which I think otherwise is not that less, because if you're in treasury, if you're in tax, if you're in FP&A, or if you're in controlling, you tend to talk to people who are just in your departments, your divisions, and sirf kaam se leke you're talking to somebody else, but you're talking to somebody. So there is a high chance for you to pick up knowledge, for you to pick up opportunities to improve. And also, if you're looking for jobs to change, and if you work with somebody, even if it is, let's say, for audit, and they know what kind of good job that you do, people are not hesitant to walk up to you and say, hey, I liked you. I really like you and my team. Trust me, it's happened to me. In the last 2 years itself, I wouldn't be wrong if I say that my visibility has increased 10x within the same company for me. Even if I'm not looking for a job opportunity, people have walked up to me and said, hey, I worked with you on this. I like what you did. I want you on my team. Are you interested? So I sort of see internal audit as a gateway to move into other streams, right? So at any given point in your time, if you don't know what to do, if you're in exploratory stage, you're very fresh, you don't know whether corporate accounting, whether creating balance sheets or creating accounting statements is the right thing for you to do, or you did multiple roles, now you don't know what to do next, you want to move, please consider internal audit, because internal audit gives you visibility to a lot of departments, a lot of roles like supply chain, procurement, capex, your industrial teams, your taxation teams, your HR, your legal team. You get visibility to all the possible departments that exist within your company. And once you do that, you'll also be in a stage to explore and say, hey, I did 4 projects, I did credit, I did inventory, I did trading, and I did something related to the laws and compliances. What interests me? Okay, I seem to like trading. Maybe I should go and ask for more opportunities in to do with trading projects. Or maybe, hey, I did a trading project. I think I established a very good rapport with a trader. I can walk up to him and say, hey, I am interested in this. What can I do? Can you take me? Will you take me? And they seriously consider people who come from internal audit. Internal audit in a lot of companies is viewed as a talent development platform because very few people otherwise understand all processes. You know, I'm not saying that it is impossible for you to do this being in corporate accounting or FP&A, but it's just, trust me when I say this, the visibility increases substantially when you move into internal audit. Okay, so I'm going to pause here because I'm seeing a couple of questions. So before I take them, I'm going to pause here for a second. Let me quickly take a look at the questions until then. Okay, somebody is Deepak. Okay, your question was, while working on internal audit assignments, do we have to do cost savings for the client? In first audit, we'll be able to do so, but how to give more cost savings in the second visit? Giving cost saving benefit puts great pressure while providing IA service. You're right. So one of the objectives is not just, one is to obviously see that you are ensuring that all the processes are the day-to-day operations are compliant with the policies and procedures. And the second thing is to try, and if there is a gap, see if there's any potential cost savings. So there are two things to it. Not every, let's say, observation that you have is connected to cost savings. Some of them are just compliance. For example, I work in a food-related industry. Okay, so for us, if you don't wear gloves and hairnets and wear the right kind of attire, you are possibly facing a reputational damage, right? This has nothing to do with cost savings. It's just like, it's already there, wear it and do it. So not every time. And then there are some cases where, let's say you're procuring something, and then you're auditing this process, and you're seeing how the bids were taken. Was it correct, not correct? Why did you choose this? Or if you're looking at, let's say, freight costs, sometimes we look at freight costs and we say, okay, you want to move from India to Thailand. Why did you take this ship? Why did you take it on this date? Why did you not use this route? Why did you go from Mumbai to Thailand directly? Why not from Chennai to Thailand? Because it's closer, right? So in case of such scenarios, that's when the cost saving improvement objectives come up, and that's why you have to be like very sensitive, keen, and be able to quantify. But having said that, I don't think there is pressure for you to provide cost savings all the time, because honestly, let's be honest, that's not the objective. The objective is to try and see if you're compliant, and if there are any procedural efficiencies that could come up, then you try and do it. And the second thing is that in a business, not everything is about cost or money. Sometimes, for example, why would you so there is, let's say there are two medications that are available, right? One will help you recover within 1 day, whereas the cheaper one will help you recover within 10 days, right? Why will you go for something that will take 10 days? Why not 1 day? So it also depends upon the thought and process of the management. Unfortunately, these are very short-term objectives if you're constantly looking for cost savings, but there are other ways in which you can add value. And it is also important for you to put your foot down and say it is not always about cost. It's also about reputational risk. It's also about safety of your employees. You can't keep looking at costs. So cost is not the only way in which you add value to the management. I'm not sure if this is the right example to tell you, but something that I've seen and observed. The minute you put your foot down, the minute you say and strongly convince the management in what you believe in. Also, I mean, having said that, you have to also listen to the management because they have more in-depth knowledge about a process than you. But the minute you can put your foot down and say, yeah, what you're saying is right, it makes sense, but this is good, this is what should happen. If you're not doing this, this is the risk that you're facing. The minute you put your foot down and say, I'm telling you that most of the time the management is convinced, because at the end of the day, nobody wants to run a business for 2-3 years. Everybody wants to run a business for 20 years, 30 years, 40 years, leave behind a legacy for their children, right? And when you're looking for a long term, it's not always about cost savings. But I do understand what you're saying, but the idea is to try and convince them that it's not about cost all the time, right? I hope that answers your question. If you have any follow-up question, you can probably unmute yourself or send me up another follow-up question. The next one, if you get an opportunity to work in any Big Four for internal audit, will it be good to take up this opportunity? Also, is advice to shift from indirect tax department in Big Four for the above rule? If you're seriously looking at internal audit as a gateway tomorrow to move, like for example, if you're already in taxation, And if we feel that, okay, taxation is where I want to be an expert in this field, please don't move, right? Tax and credit and trading are like very niche fields. People who are in it only get to progress maybe 10 years, 15 years later. Very rarely do people from outside enter. I'm not saying it does not happen. Internal audit is one way, doing an MBA is another way, and three, if you're like extremely smart, irrespective of your qualification, that's another way of getting into it. But if you're very serious that this is where you want to establish your field, don't move. But if you feel that internal audit is, I mean, indirect tax is not for me, or I'm getting bored, or maybe you think that there are better opportunities for you to look at, or better things for you to do in the future, like if you're looking for an all-rounder development, like maybe I want to become the CEO. Sorry to burst the bubble, but nobody who's just been in taxation, nobody who's just been in corporate accounting or treasury gets to be the CEO. People usually with an all-round experience are considered for a CFO CEO level. So if that is where you're looking at, consider internal audit. Internal audit in a big four is a good start because one, you get good exposure, अच्छा छाप मिलता है CV पे, and three, when you want to move out tomorrow, a lot of industries open up. So if you end up coming to the industry side, then you're staying very specific to one particular industry, whether it is services, manufacturing, financial, whatever, startups, electricity, I mean, electrical vehicles, etc. But the minute you're in a big four, आपको शायद सारी industries का experience मिल जाता है because clients are diverse. So you can also see which industry interests you. Maybe manufacturing does more than financial services, or financial services does more than startups. You also get to see a flavor of all of that, and then you also understand the processes. So if you want to move and open up your opportunities from direct taxation, please do look at it. Rishabh has a question. When in
Hello.
Yeah.
Sorry, ma'am, for interrupting in between of your talks. Ma'am,
Hi,
you have.
Pulkit.
Hi, hello, ma'am. Ma'am, as the talks were going regarding with the specific topic, if like if you want to become all rounder and you will get a CEO and CFO position. So you told that internal audit can be taken as a base for such,
Yes.
if you want to achieve such position. So can you make me some more मीन्स आप थोड़ा सा और एक्स्ट्रा में बता सकते हो इंटरनल ऑडिट कैसे एक हेल्पफुल हो सकता है, कौन से एरिया को कवर करता है, तो एक जो इनिशियल बेसिस पे जो एंट्री पॉइंट एंट्री पर्सन लेता है इंटरनल ऑडिट में, सो उसका माइंड वैसे खुले कि भाई मेरे को ये एरिया ये इतने पीरियड में कवर करना है, बिकॉज आपको कहीं ना कहीं टाइम रेस्ट्रिक्शन रहेगी कि आपको मतलब अगर आपको ओवरऑल अपना ग्रोथ चाहिए तो आपको कहीं ना कहीं टाइम रेस्ट्रिक्शन रख के आपको सारे एरियाज भी कवर करने, साथ में आपको एक पोजीशन भी चाहिए. सो आप थोड़ा सा. और मैम सेकंड क्वेश्चन ये भी है, अगर टाइम मेरा नहीं आ पाए बाई चांस बाद में वापस, सो सेकंड क्वेश्चन ये भी है कि आपने बोला जैसे लुक्रेटिव और एकदम अभी जैसे हॉट टॉपिक्स है सीएसआर ऑडिट, सो इसमें कैसे करना चाहिए, तो सेकंड क्वेश्चन आप ये थोड़ा एक्सप्लेन कर दीजिए.
Okay, sure. So Pulkit, अगर if you're a fresher and if you're looking out for jobs, okay, and अगर आपको अब तक chance नहीं मिला है to talk to, let's say, some of the veterans of Unilever, some of the veterans of ITC, Tata, ठीक है? So Unilever in the industry is considered, Unilever, Marico, these are all the companies that are considered, ITC, Procter and Gamble are considered to be the kind of industries to be in if you're in the kind of companies to be in when you're in the industry. Okay, just like consulting में जाना है तो CA के लिए Big Fours होते हैं, या MBA जो MBA करके निकलता है उसके लिए BNN company, Goldman and Sachs वैसे companies होते हैं, right? So industry में these are the benchmarks where every person, every CA is aspiring to be a part of, क्योंकि one company का structure, segment, diversity इतना ज़्यादा है. Two opportunities are plenty. It's not like आप एक कंपनी में काम कर रहे हो जिसमें सिर्फ 40 जन है, यहाँ पे एक कंपनी में काम कर रहे हो जहाँ पे 40,000 लोग हैं. So for you to even move across departments, geographies, talk to people, in that way, these companies are the best to be in. And if you've had the opportunity to talk, or if you ever talk to people who are in Unilever, ITC, Procter and Gamble, Coca-Cola, Pepsi, name it, any top company in the industry, right? आपको सब एक ही चीज बोलेंगे कि ड्यूरिंग योर पीरियड, ड्यूरिंग योर टाइम इन दिस ऑर्गेनाइजेशन, आप एटलीस्ट 2-3 साल इंटरनल ऑडिट में निकालो. इनफैक्ट यूनिलीवर के जितने भी सीईओज हैं, फॉरगेट सीईओज, ओके, जितने भी CFOs है सब ने 2 साल इंटरनल ऑडिट में काटा है, everyone. And Unilever also thinks that for you to become successful आपको Unilever internal audit में time निकालना ही है. In my company I have a lot of Unilever veterans. मेरा CEO Unilever से है, CFO Unilever से है, मेरे जो legal के है वो Unilever से है. My HR comes from Cadbury, which is also a great organization. Mondelez to work with. Mondelez, Nestle, सब आप बात करेंगे ना, सब एक ही चीज आपको बोलेंगे, ड्यूरिंग योर टाइम आप 2 साल इंटरनल ऑडिट पे निकालो. And when I decided to move to internal audit, this I'm not kidding, okay? I'm not like this is what happens when you work with a good organization and good set of people. When I decided to move to internal audit, the CEO CFO came to me and they said, I like what you're doing, it's good that you're doing. लोग करते नहीं है, किसी को internal audit में जाना नहीं है, but you're doing it. I'm very happy for you. Specifically only for like not one reason, it's multiple reasons, you know. One is that जैसे मैंने बोला आपको हर चीज का एक एक्सपीरियंस मिलता है. आप कॉर्पोरेट ऑफिस में इफ यू टेक अप एनी फाइनेंशियल रोल, कॉर्पोरेट ऑफिस में आप बैठ के सिर्फ आप एक एरियल व्यू आपको मिल रहा है, यू नो. फॉर एग्जांपल आपके पास एक ड्रोन है और आप ड्रोन को चला रहे हो, नेविगेट कर रहे हो, आपको सब ऊपर ऊपर से दिखता है. बट डू यू थिंक दैट इज हाउ यू कैन रन अ बिजनेस? यू कांट रन अ बिजनेस staying on the 12th floor and seeing नीचे क्या हो रहा है. नहीं, you have to get on the ground, you have to get your hands dirty, which means that you have to go to the markets to see कि क्या हो रहा है. You have to go to the plants to see कि क्या हो रहा है. You have to sit with the traders जिधर भी हैं, वहां पे बैठ के आप पता करना है कि क्या हो रहा है, right? Procurement में आप कुछ audit कर रहे हो, procurement related audit. Procurement is nothing to do with purchases. Procurement has a lot more things than just seeing हाँ PO raise किया, invoice आया, ये बराबर हुआ है कि नहीं. Like I said, 90% of what we do is data analytics. And usually in any corporate finance kind of a role, except for FP&A, आप data analytics का role करते ही नहीं है. You're not doing that. How else do you understand the complexities of a business? One, so being an internal audit helps you get to the ground level, helps you talk to multiple people. आप सिर्फ department heads के साथ आप बात नहीं कर रहे, आप department heads के साथ बात करेंगे. To be very honest, everybody will say हाँ सब कुछ ठीक चल रहा है, but only when you talk to one level low. Like I said, plant में अगर एक operation है, let's say one of the process is to see inventory बराबर आया है कि नहीं है, right? And you want to see they've showed 100 metric tons of some purchase, 100 kilos of some purchase. वो factory gate के अंदर आया है कि नहीं है, वो आपको जब चेक करना है ना, आपको सबके साथ बात करना है, इंक्लूडिंग सिक्योरिटी. लाइक सर ये आपको मतलब बुक्स में ऐसा दिख रहा है, show me in your books, did you punch it, what time did it come? अच्छा ये टाइम पे उसको आना ही नहीं चाहिए था, ये क्यों आया? वो ट्रक के गाड़ी मतलब फैक्ट्री के अंदर आया, इसको एक सामान लेके आया, उसको निकालने के लिए लगभग 1-2 घंटा चाहिए, बट वो था 10 घंटे के लिए. ये क्यों था 10 घंटे के लिए? एंड देन ही टेल यू नहीं मैडम लेकिन ये ऐसा कुछ इशू हुआ था, फॉर द मटेरियल टू बी डाउनलोडेड, फॉर द मटेरियल टू बी अनलोडेड क्वालिटी चेक होता है, क्वालिटी में ऐसा इशू आया, द मॉइस्चर वाज हाई या कुछ उसमें कुछ प्रॉब्लम था, क्वालिटी रिजेक्ट हुआ, that's why he was there. Then we were talking to the commercial. So the kind of understanding that you have, it's always the process of asking why and why. It is not about saying जो आपने बोला वो सही है, I'm going to take that as an answer. So when you keep questioning every process, the first thing somebody is asking me about what skills are important for an internal auditor. One of the skills that is critical is to be continuously what is the word? Skeptical is
Professional
not
skepticism.
Settling down.
professional skepticism. You're right. It's not like
and
I'm looking at you
and
as
watchdog, like a watchdog.
see, watchdog is, you're right, but when you say a watchdog, there are certain negative connotations attached to it, right? But what I'm trying to say is when you exercise professional skepticism, that is what you have to do everywhere. But internal audit में आपको सबसे ज्यादा करने को मिलता है, because continuously keep asking why, ये क्यों होता है, वो क्यों होता है, which usually, having done corporate accounts and FP&A, I've not got the time to do it. So जितना मेरा बिजनेस अंडरस्टैंडिंग हुआ है ना, फॉर एग्जांपल प्लांट के बारे में, आई टू रिव्यू इसका कॉस्टिंग क्या है, इसका बजट क्या है. हमने उसको बोला था 1000 किलोज मैन्युफैक्चर करने के लिए, लेकिन उसने सिर्फ 660 किया है. Why? But here I'm also understanding 660 आपने क्यों किया है? Why only 660? Why couldn't you achieve 1000? Right? So that continuous practice of asking why helps you get a fantastic business in-depth knowledge जो usually बाकी roles में नहीं मिलते हैं. आज भी, so for example, I used to work with when I was in corporate accounts and FP&A, I used to talk to a person who was much senior than me. ठीक है, उनका डेजिग्नेशन था दैट ऑफ अ सीनियर मैनेजर, आज है वो असिस्टेंट जनरल मैनेजर. आज भी आफ्टर आई मूव्ड इनटू इंटरनल ऑडिट, आज वो मेरे पास आते हैं एंड सेज हे लिसन, दिस इज द प्रोसेस दैट आई वांट टू डू, what is right, this is what I'm thinking about, ये करेक्ट है, ये करेक्ट नहीं है, क्या है, what this is how हम इंडिया में करते हैं, you must have done this or seen this in Italy or China, ये क्या है बताओ, right? So the minute you ask questions as why, and you get an opportunity to see broad, for me, like I said, I got lucky and I'm also getting a very international experience. I'm working with counterparts for European, Chinese, South American, North Americans, right? So मेरा experience बहुत large है, but even otherwise, even for any good, decently sized Indian company, you're benchmarking, you're constantly benchmarking. You're like, हाँ ये office ऐसा करता है, लेकिन ये office B is like this. Why is it ऊपर नीचे, right? You're in a position to compare and add value. Varna ye teams don't speak to each other. Okay, that is one. Second thing is a stakeholder management. You're not a statutory auditor where you're saying, "Acha management में ये नहीं किया तो I'm going to issue a negative report. I'm going to issue a report जहाँ पे बैंड बजने वाली." No, you're very much the part of the management. You're very much a part of the company, and it is always difficult to work like that. जब आपको पता है कि एक problem है, you're not moving towards highlighting the problem. You're moving towards finding a solution for the problem. And that's when you also become a part of the management. That's also where you start using your brains. You start working towards one common objective, right? And that is highly appreciated because irrespective of where you are, which field you are, whether you're an engineer, whether you're a sport, like a manager for some kind of an athlete, whether you're in tax, whether you're in, name it, any field, whether you're a chef, the minute you see a problem, you identify the problem, and then your next immediate ability is
Hello.
gap kya hai, how do I address it, right? And this skill is something that you constantly keep, or this kind of attribute is something that you constantly
Hello.
keep developing in an internal audit. Pulkit, any issue?
Hello.
Yes.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. मैम
Okay.
अभी
And
जैसे
the
आप
third thing, sorry,
बता रहे
just
हैं
let
कि
me
अभी
mention.
has a
एक minute.
stat
Let me
audit
just,
and okay.
Pulkit, 1 second, let me just complete it quickly. Okay. And the third thing that you're looking at is somebody was saying that you have to constantly keep writing reports, which is very true. But I'm telling you, writing reports is one of the finest thing that you can do. Because written communication skills jo hote hain na, not a lot of people possess it. Tomorrow, whether you become the director's report aapko issue karna hai, whether you're a part of the CSR objective, aapko return issues, reports publish karna hai. So this whole written skill also constantly keeps developing, and trust me, the way you write versus how you get transformed wo alag level pe, and that you will see throughout everywhere. Because the minute you become a head of a department, it will be less about managing the transactions, it will be more about setting rules, setting policies, setting procedures, writing them, drafting them, ensuring that it is communicated to the lowest possible level. So all these skills get picked up there. The second question that you had asked was, how do you become a part of these CSR objectives or corporate sustainability objectives? It is not easy. A lot of opportunities are not coming up in this field because it's a very new field. Only when you do something is when you, for example, anything to do with larger companies, right? They're very extremely conscious about carbon emissions, your water usage, your energy usage, whether you are working in a space where that is leading to deforestation, whether you're working in a space where you're indulging in inhumanitarian practices, right? These are all really hot topics, and these are all the topics that are going to be of incredible relevance tomorrow. It is not very easy to be a part of it. The only way to be a part of it is to constantly keep telling your manager or constantly keep telling your boss that I want to do this, I want to be a part of this whenever it happens, whenever an opportunity comes up. That is how I stumbled upon this, because from the past 1 year, that's all I've been telling my manager and director कि ये मुझे ठीक लगता है, ये मुझे सही लगता है, मुझे यहाँ पे क्या होता है वो जानना है, बात करना है, get me in, right? Because these are very niche fields right now, and if you want something, you have to constantly keep asking.
Tejashree, sorry to
Hello.
interrupt between.
Yeah.
I have a very specific question for you. Since I have been doing internal audit from past 3 years, I have been joined internal audit since my starting of my internship I'm in BDO right now. And for the first 1 year, I didn't do the internal audit because I didn't like the field. I am very much skeptical I should continue or not. But when the lockdown came and I have no choices, so I started enjoying it. Doing internal audit from long time, having what you have said earlier is totally relatable in this field, because I have been a part of management. I am on a secondment project in which I have worked with a manufacturing company, and also it got a subsidiary which is a NBFC branch, which was which give loans to the customer to purchase that product. It is a tractor manufacturing company. So my first question for you is like, having done both the companies were like manufacturing and the financial services, I am confused between the both. If you have particular insights about financial services, what would be your insights? And second question from me is like, if someone is working in an internal audit and it is basically a business consulting, and if someone wants to go into the management consultant, like what BCG, McKinsey, Payne do, so it would be a cherry on the cake to do work in internal audit, or is it totally different from each other?
So I don't have a lot of experience in financial services, more to be very honest. Even during my internship days, I did it in manufacturing, and I was pretty sort of always saw myself in this space. I thought that manufacturing is great. It was for me, though. I mean, it's a very crude way of seeing it. It's probably also very safe. But ab jo bhi karo, manufacturing is never going to die, right? Some
Yes.
things like food, clothing, shelter, you need it, right?
Yes, yes.
Manufacturing, roti kapda makan, and manufacturing is the industry that is
The
closely
way of
associated.
doing it may change, but it will remain always remain.
Exactly. It was always it will always remain relevant. So my dad used to say that three businesses will never go out of demand: food, fashion, and money. Right. So
Roti
no
kapda
matter
makan.
what you आपको खाना खाना ही है, no matter what you do, you want to wear good clothes, and then सबके लिए पैसा तो आपको चाहिए. So I don't have a lot of experience when it comes to financial services. The only thing that I can advise you is you've spent time in both. Why don't you sit down and see what interests you the most? A lot of CAs that I'm talking to recently, they're all very pumped up with this whole idea of venture fund capitalism. I mean, venture capitalists, fund houses, banking. This excites them a lot. You just have to see what excites you, right? And then
Yes.
follow your heart. There is no right or wrong answer. It's all about आपको किधर मजा आता है and follow it.
I'm
If you
just
think
looking for the
सबसे ज्यादा
another information about you. I'm gathering the information regarding the financial services and the
your
role of
voice
an
is very
internal.
faint.
I said that I am looking for the information, or I am gathering the information regarding the role of an internal auditor in a financial sector space.
Yeah, so the thing about financial sector space is that obviously it is very different. It has more to do with risk management, trading.
Yes.
It has more to do with laws and compliances, etc. I can tell you that the company that I work for, it gives me an opportunity to also see the manufacturing side and also the trade and risk management side, right? And I can tell you that despite spending some time in manufacturing, everything that happens in risk and treasury uh, interests me. I like how traders take. I'm constantly fascinated, and I spend a lot of time with traders when I'm doing such kind of projects. I ask them, "आपने ये position क्यों लिया? If how did you cover your hedge? Why in this market? How do you take advantage of the opportunity, the arbitrage opportunity? For example, China may, for example, like we have RBI, right, where you have $1, you exchange the dollar for 75 rupees. China mein kya hota hai? They have multiple exchange funds. So it's possible that in one fund you get 75 rupees, for example, hypothetically. Another fund you get 73 rupees, another fund you get 76 rupees. So China ke market mein hi ek arbitrage opportunity hai. So right, when you're talking about such things really excite me. So there are a lot of things that you can see and know when you're in a financial firm. Essentially, like I said, the skill sets required for an internal auditor don't change. It's industry specific, because for an internal auditor, it is important that you have to keep questioning everything that you say. At the same time, give benefit of doubt to the management. You can't be like, "Ha, mujhe kuch mila, I'm going to issue a report." Nahi, you can't go with that mindset. It's about, "Hey, I saw something. I see that it can be better. How can I make it better?" Right? So you have to constantly keep asking. You have to constantly be compassionate and understanding. And three, you have to constantly try and get in-depth business knowledge. Right? So these three fundamental skills, and of course communication, yaar, wo bina communication kuch chalta nahi hai, irrespective of where you are. If you're, whether it's in Hindi, English, agar aap jo aapke dimag mein ideas hai wo clearly aap communicate nahi kar pa rahe ho, to then it's like everything else is a failure, right? And unfortunately, there's a need for you to be very conversant in English. So the core internal audit skills don't change, just the industry changes. I've also seen people who freely move from financial services to manufacturing back to trading, staying in an internal audit, right? So given that internal audit may sub your foundation level same hai, try and see which industry excites you the more and accordingly take that decision.
And the second
Okay,
one
I hope
for
that helps.
management consultant and
Next,
business consultant.
Ma'am, I have a doubt. Can I ask?
Saket, can you please hold that? I have a lot of people asking questions here. Let me quickly go through that and I'll come back to you.
Sure, ma'am.
Yeah, I think I've answered this question. What kind of skill sets do we require? Now,
Just a sec. To make it smooth, I'll just read you out the questions so that you don't waste time in reading out. So I guess the next question, you are reading from the chat box, right?
Yeah. I think let me take Yashika Junjanwala's question, and after that, you can start looking at the other questions. So here it says, I'm a
Perfect.
business process lead. How do I switch to internal auditing if I don't have prior experience? Where you are does not matter, Yashika. Good organizations always let you go into internal audit because internal audit में आप बहुत सारे processes देख रहे हो. It's not like आप सिर्फ inventory देख रहे हो, आप सिर्फ treasury या credit देख रहे हो, या आप सिर्फ procurement देख रहे हो, right? You're auditing multiple processes, and to always have a subject matter expert in that process is extremely helpful. I work in a team jahan pe I'll tell you, I work in a team size about of 45 people. Okay, we're spread across the globe: North America, South America, India, China, Malaysia, all parts of Europe. We're all spread out. And usme se out of 45, I will not be wrong if I tell you not more than 10 are qualified internal auditors or CAs or CA equivalent, which is CPA. राइट बाकी सब इंजीनियरिंग स्ट्रीम से आते हैं, बाकी सब शेड सर्विस यूनिट से आते हैं, बाकी सब प्लांट ऑपरेशन से आते हैं, बिकॉज दैट इज हाउ आई प्रोवाइड वैल्यू. आई हैव बीन इन द बिजनेस साइड, मुझे बिजनेस क्या है समझ में आता है. आई कम इन टू इंटरनल ऑडिट वेयर आई कैन हेल्प अदर पीपल अंडरस्टैंड. व्हेन आई एम ऑडिटिंग दैट एरिया आई कैन एड मोर वैल्यू, बिकॉज यहाँ पे क्या, द मोस्ट कॉमन थिंग दैट when you identify an observation, the most common thing that they will come and tell you is, madam, you don't understand the technicalities of the business, right? But then so many times it's helped me that I'm coming from corporate accounting and FP&A. I'm so glad I took up internal audit much later, because now nobody can bullshit me. Nobody can be like, आपको ये नहीं पता कि क्या होता है, day one इतना pressure आता है, हमें ये सब इतना करना होता है. Nobody can bullshit me today, because I will be like, sorry sir, sorry boss, मैंने ये सब किया है, मुझे पता है क्या होता है, pressure कितना होता है, and despite that I was able to manage this. So if I was able to manage, so can you, right? So don't ever feel that आप कोई और डिपार्टमेंट से आप स्विच नहीं कर सकते हो. आप डेफिनेटली कर सकते हो. A lot of people are open to this. Maybe if not within your own business, try looking for opportunities outside. You can connect with me on LinkedIn. I constantly know people who are looking for openings in internal audit, and preferably from otherwise backgrounds. So if you do well in the interview and if you're able to prove yourself that you can be an asset, even me, like even though I was in the same company and moved into internal audit, the question that they will ask you, what kind of value addition will you provide? So you have to be very assertive and very confident to see, I understand the business, I can come with the kind of business skill sets and information that nobody else in your team probably has, because वो granularity पे क्या होता है, field पे क्या होता है, वो सिर्फ मैं जानती हूँ, right? So be assertive and go for it if you're interested. Yes, Neil, if you could help me.
Sure. So the question, I guess you answered, what do interviewers look for in an internal auditor, right?
No, I think I took the question before that.
Okay,
I'm like 2 questions before. Is it easy to switch department and articleship from internal audit to stat audit while doing in any big four? Having worked in a big four, they're not very big on such transfers, but you can obviously try. There will be certain exceptions. They'll be willing to grant and make it an exception. But usually मैंने ये देखा नहीं है. It is still easier to get this jump in the first year compared to the second or the third year. तो आपको करना है तो आप कोशिश कर सकते हो. The next one is Ritika's question. Traveling and networking are the plus points for internal audit. I can't emphasize enough. बहुत सारे हैं. Unfortunately, COVID happened. I couldn't travel. Otherwise, I think मेरा एक passport खत्म ही हो जाता with all of that. And obviously the networking, because you're constantly talking to, at least for me, it's a brilliant opportunity क्योंकि बहुत सारे international geographies का exposure है. So networking, yes. I think now it's the question that we're looking at.
So what do interviewers look for in an internal audit? Yeah.
I think interviews largely see the kind of business acumen that you already have, business understanding that you already have. If you don't have business understanding, they will try and test if you're capable of understanding the business in the truest sense, because it's easy to say कि law के हिसाब से ऐसा होना चाहिए, ये नहीं हो रहा है, ये problem है. It's about how do you bridge the gap, how do you make two ends meet, how do you make it very smooth for the management. right? So one is your ability to identify, understand the process, identify a gap, come up with a creative solution. Two, your people skills. People skills are tested big time in internal audit because आपको बहुत सारे internal stakeholders होते हैं and external stakeholders होते हैं. So it is important to manage all of that. And it is not just like आप whatever 25 years के हो तो आप you're interacting with people who are around the same age. ऐसा नहीं है. Talking to the HOD, you're talking to the CFO, you're talking to the country, whatever, director. So soft skills are tested big time. The project management skills are tested big time. Your time management skills are tested big time. So ये सारे soft skills है. 3 is your communication. Largely these 3 things: your people skills, communication skills, and your business acumen. The next one, ma'am,
Yeah.
you're right. You also.
So yeah, that is not a question. That is just an affirmation. The next is internal audit in a bank. So they want to know what is internal audit exactly in a banking environment. So yeah.
So in a banking, can you elaborate if internal audit in bank is exciting or not, and if opportunities exist? See, I'll tell you, when you're looking for internal audit, you should try and understand 2 things. Okay, one is that what you're choosing, whether you're choosing a big 4 environment or whether you're choosing an industry, because the way they operate in a big 4 and internally, it is honestly very different. Okay, in an industry, you get to see the length and breadth, while in, let's say, in a big 4, you only pick up, you're continuously engaged. So if you're lucky, you get to see multiple businesses. Otherwise, you're stuck in one company doing the internal audit of it time and again. Now, internal audit can also be sometimes switched for concurrent audits जो बैंक में होता है, जो एक के बाद एक के बाद एक के बाद आप कर रहे हो, right? So if you're into concurrent audits, I think it is very boring, because concurrent audit, it's a mix of internal audit plus statutory audit, and आप बार बार वही कर रहे हो. If you're looking for banks, I think the best place to be in is in the bank itself. So don't go for a big 4 when you're looking for banking as a specific industry. Try and see if such opportunities exist within the banks itself. I know that ICICI, Deutsche Bank, HDFC Bank have their own internal. It's important that you be a part of the in-house internal audit team, not an external audit team. Okay, so the benefits, it's different. It's very different if you're in an internal in-house team versus an external team. So try and look for opportunities within bank itself, so that you get to see everything from the banking operations, treasury, trade, risk management, everything. You'll get to be a part of that.
Yeah. Moving ahead, Sai has asked a question. I wish to get into the FMCG industry. How can a fresher with 3 attempts get in? As in campus, it's mostly first attempt. So he's asking, do attempts matter for FMCG industry?
Unfortunately, in campus, it's one of the criteria in which they end up shortlisting people. So I'm a first attempt CA, and I still didn't get shortlisted for one of the top FMCG company that I wanted to be a part of. And honestly, you can't say it's unfair, because जब एक position के लिए 400 लोग interview करने आते हैं, there has to be some process or some way in which you start filtering people. So first they will see, okay, first attempt, then they will see big 4 है नहीं है, then they'll see marks कितना है. I mean, CA में कौन marks पूछता है, percentage कौन पूछता है. But for me, I remember I did really well in the GD. I got in postal interview. I got in final interview with the HR. She just took my CV. I got bare passing marks. Okay, 400 मिलना था, मुझे 403 मिला. And then she just circled on the 403 and she passed on the CV and said sorry. Right, so you can't do anything. It's unfair. But अगर campus में कुछ नहीं हो रहा है, तो please try offline. The current organization that I'm a part of, I tried offline. Naukri.com में जाओ, whatever. IIM jobs में जाओ, apply करो. LinkedIn, be very active in LinkedIn. I'm telling you, don't underestimate the power of networking, because I'll tell you. Okay, so there's this carpooling group that I'm a part of. So from destination A to B, मैं बॉम्बे में रहती हूँ. So destination A to B अगर किसी को जाना है, तो एक message डालते हैं saying that I'm leaving from part A to part B. If anybody interested, you can come. I've got 6 job offers just carpooling with people, right? And all from banks, right? And Saturday, Sunday मैं table tennis खेलने जाती हूँ. I like to play table tennis. मैं वहाँ पे table tennis खेल रही थी. There was this guy who was an HR in Star या Colors, one of these channel platforms, and he said, and we were talking. So I was like, मैं क्या करती हूँ, what do I do, etc., etc. And while playing TT, I'm not kidding, he said, I have this perfect opportunity for you. I can line up an interview on Monday tomorrow. Can you walk in? Right? So never underestimate the power of networking. Keep networking, talk to people, reach out. In fact, now you know me, reach out to me, reach out to Path, reach out to anybody on this group. Try and see what works for you. Okay, don't get scared because आपका 3 attempt है. So keep trying.
Perfect.
हेलो हेलो
Yeah, Pulkit. Yeah.
हेलो मैम, मेरा क्वेश्चन ये है कि अभी जैसे कोई इंटर्न
Pulkit,
जैसे अभी
Pulkit, just a sec. We'll first finish all the doubts in the chat box and then we'll reach out to you. Just a sec, guys. The next one is yeah, what should we prefer in terms of experience, firm or corporate for internal audit?
For internal audit, it's a tricky question, to be honest. In terms of, see, I'm also seeing another question saying that which department should be the best to work for an article. Okay, so I will just give you a largely generic answer because there is no correct, right, specific answer to this. It all depends on कल आपको 10 साल 15 साल के बाद आपको क्या करना है. So for example, if you feel that, like Neil was saying, that he has a practice of his father, he wants to go back to it, business बढ़ाना है, etc., then the best place to be a part of is a firm. And preferably a mid-sized firm or a small firm, क्योंकि आप बिग फोर्स में जाते हो तो अच्छा छाप मिलता है, पे शायद अच्छा मिलता है, बट you are a part of very specific fields like statutory audit, आप सिर्फ ये कर रहे हो, due diligence आप सिर्फ ये कर रहे हो. But if you want to start a firm tomorrow, have a business of your own, I think it's always better to start with small or mid-sized firms, क्योंकि you get a flavor of everything. आप taxation कर रहे हो, accounting कर रहे हो, आप internal audit कर रहे हो, आप सब कुछ कर रहे हो, internal filing, individual filing, company filing, आप सब कुछ कर रहे हो. So that's one way in which you evaluate whether firm or corporate. Firm makes sense only if you're getting into a like, let's say, I mean, firm or corporate, otherwise there is honestly no difference. The only thing that I would ask you to do is research well on if you're getting an internal audit opportunity, research well. It's always important to know in a firm or in a corporate which division that they're taking you in for. Even in corporates, it's possible that they're taking you specifically for one particular segment and not, you may be an internal auditor for just now, like Tata, right? It has a huge business segment. So I know friends who have worked only in Taj group of hotels. So उनका सिर्फ hotels में बहुत मजा आता है, सारे exotic properties में जाते हैं, घूमते हैं, audit करके आते हैं, but that's all that they do. They don't move in chemicals, they don't move in power, they don't move in other business services that they have TCS, right? So if you're looking for an all-round experience, then you have to try and search a little more about the firm or the corporate and the kind of job experience that they're giving. And it also matters to see whom you're working under. Bosses make or break your career. If it's a good boss, then you say, मेरे को ये पसंद नहीं आ रहा है, internal पसंद, audit पसंद नहीं आ रहा है, I want to move, they'll help you move. Or if you say I'm interested in internal audit, but मुझे लग रहा है कि exposure सही नहीं मिल रहा है या मुझे कुछ और करना है, they'll make you move. So do consider these points while you're selecting internal audit or any specific or any department, and you're making a choice between firm or corporate. Can you advise which department should be the best to work in as an article? I think I've already addressed this. It depends on 10-15 years में आपको क्या करना है. If you want to start a business of your own, please go for a small division so that you get to see everything. And उसके बाद you get to decide, right? क्योंकि starting में it's possible that, for example, I remember when I started the career, I was very, नहीं मुझे CEO बनना है, CFO बनना है, and today I have different objectives. Today I don't care if I'm not the CFO or if I'm not the CEO. I have different objectives in life. So thoughts change as you mature, thoughts change as you gain work experience. So I would suggest that you gain as much possible experience across different sectors before you make a decision of your own. So keep that in mind. First of all, you're amazing.
Ma'am, I have a follow-up question regarding to that. Ma'am, if I want to do a job after becoming a CA, then which department should I take up in articleship?
After becoming a CA, you want to go back to articleship? Sorry,
No,
what was it?
Ma'am, I want to do a job after becoming a CA. So
You want to do a
which
job after becoming a CA? Okay. So it means that you want to stick to corporate, right? So it makes sense that you get into Big Four. I mean, I'm not saying that it is bad if you go to a small firm or a mid firm, but in the order of priority, I would say Big Four, mid large firm, and then small firm, because the minute they see a huge big name, no, like PAK, Sridhar Santanam, Deloitte, Haskins and Sells, the the probability of your CV being picked up amongst the rest increases. One. Two, which department to choose in. I think तीन departments में आपको शायद काम करने का मौका मिलता है: internal audit, statutory audit, and then taxation. Unless and until you want to make your career in taxation, don't get into taxation. It's a very niche field. But having said that, taxation के बाद भी you can, I think, jump, but the chances are less. So I would say it is safe to stick into statutory audit or internal audit, because even if so for example, I was considered for a lot of M&A roles, due diligence roles, because I came from internal audit I came from statutory audit background, and I was also considered for FP&A and corporate accounting because I came from a statutory audit background. So I know it's not very glamorous, but I think it's a good role to be in क्योंकि आपके options बहुत सारे हो जाते हैं. It's just like 10th के बाद आपको पता नहीं क्या करना है, तो सब यही बोलते हैं कि साइंस ले लो क्योंकि साइंस के बाद your opportunities are many. So statutory audit is like that, and if you're lucky you also get to travel in statutory audit, जो usually taxation में नहीं होता है. So see what you like, what interests you, and take it up. William, I can see that there's some question. Looking back in your journey, would there be something that you would suggest to do differently or similar to keep being motivated through such a fantastic career? Okay. What would I suggest is keep your eyes and mind open, right? Because I think that's like a general attitude for me in life. There's this famous saying by one of my favorite songwriters saying, "Be water, my friend," meaning that keep constantly flowing, stay flexible. Water usually, if you see, it takes the shape of any object that you put in. Lake mein hai to lake ka shape, bottle mein to bottle ka shape, square, round, hexagon, anything, right? And it really helps in life because the way you view life when you're 2021, when you clear CA versus the way you view life after 7-8 years of experience is very different. So stay open to possibilities, talk to people. Again, can't emphasize on the importance of networking, standing your ground, right? You will get into a lot of arguments. You will get into a lot of people telling you she's headstrong, he's headstrong. But if you believe in something, right? So I mean, so for example, I'll tell you something. When I was in FP&A, right, when we were doing budgets, drawing up growth plans for like 5-10 years, and that's how it is, right? I don't know if this will surprise you, but it shouldn't. The management is always trying to show a glowy number, like a very good number, and not like it's fudged, right? But that's how everybody is. For example, आप tax filing कर रहे हो, everybody wants to get a refund, right? It's like that. But if you feel that something is wrong, put your foot down, question. They will have an argument with you, but tomorrow they will come back and say, yeah, but Tejashree, I like your professionalism. I like the fact that you don't listen to people. You stand your ground. You convince me. You have your principles. You have your ethics. So do that. And to stay motivated, I think keep doing things that are interesting. I kept moving across departments. This is my 4th role, like I said, average about 2.5 years in every role. Every time I felt that my growth was stagnating, every time I felt like there was nothing new that I was learning. See, you can't learn new every day. You can't learn something new every day. Some things happen only once in a while, and sometimes it's about being in the right place and at the right time, right? Nobody can, that is not under your control. क्योंकि कब क्या होना चाहिए, we are not let's say in control of that. But what you can control is something exciting, you stay. If something's not exciting, you shake up the system. Don't be afraid to move. Don't be afraid to try new things. Don't be afraid to walk up to a person and say, hey, I really like what you're doing. Can I buy you a coffee? Can I understand what you're doing? Never underestimate that, because people are absolutely loving that, right? I hope this answers your question. Zil, I'm applying for articleship. I'm confused between overall exposure and internal audit. Is there any way you can help decide? I think I've taken that one, Zil. If you still have questions, let me know. Questioning mind, I think it was question to something else. If someone's a CA fresher having experience in statutory audit and want to shift into internal audit, is internal audit industry or Big Four preferable? I think I've already answered this. Please see the company that's interviewing you, right? I will tell you the benefits of being in an industry. It's possible the work environment will not be as toxic as a consultancy environment. This is my personal experience. A lot of people I know, they've had great experience in Big Four, but for me it was pretty toxic. Like You constantly have deadlines. You're constantly working till 8, 9 o'clock every day is a given. Working on weekends sometimes is a given, right? You're constantly on deadlines. You're looking at profitability, making cash. Industry makes life a little more easier. It's easy for you to also have like a work-life balance, right? See, so do your due diligence, do your homework on which company is offering you, which industry is offering you. Also compare the pay, talk to people, see the kind of also in industry, if you're entering in a big four, sorry, also if you're entering in industry and internal audit, be very clear, right from the get-go. Tell that I may or may not want to be in internal audit, but tomorrow if I want to move and want to stay within the company, what kind of opportunities can I have? Don't be afraid to ask this question. It's actually encouraged, and people also find it see this as a positive attribute, saying that okay, ladki or ladka is like willing to move, try new things, also be in the management, also open to fitting in the business or management as and when we need it. So don't be afraid to ask that. Also try and understand this about the industry, because if then they're going to be like, no, for example, in big four, if you're in internal audit, you can't move anywhere else, but in industry you get this privilege. So even when I moved to internal audit, I was very clear from the get go that मुझे यहाँ पे ज़्यादा time नहीं निकालना है. I want to be here for 2-3 years, and after that look for opportunities. And now that it's like I completed 2 years, this time when I had a conversation with my director was like, okay, what next? Does something interest you? Does something excite you? I see this opportunity. My ex-manager walked up to me and said, hey, I see these opportunities. You've spent 2 years in internal audit and you said that this is the time you want to spend. Are you interested to move? Then I have an opportunity for you. So only when you're vocal about things, people also understand that you want to move. So if you're looking for a holistic experience within a company, then this is the benefit, but be sure to be vocal about it. You don't get anything that you don't ask for. Internal audit, what should we prefer in terms of experience? Firm, corporate? I've been in internal audit since 2018. So if I wish to switch from IA, what would be the preferred profile to choose? Rishabh, I can't answer what will interest you because I don't know a lot about you. But I would suggest that you talk to people, right? Like I right now where I am in my career, personally speaking, I think I want to stay in internal audit again for another 2-3 years and then move on. But having said that, I've already started reaching out to people within my organization, somebody in corporate tax, somebody in strategy, somebody in sustainability and governance, somebody in FP&A, to try and understand what kind of opportunities exist, whether it interests me, doesn't interest me. So it's something that you have to do on your own, talk to people, understand what excites you, and then make this move. So sorry, I can't answer that question, but maybe I hope this suggestion helps you. What preparations need to be done for interviews? Which are the well-known corporates for IA except for big fours? I think interviews are pretty standard and regular. I don't think they will obviously test you. If you're a fresher, they will obviously test you on some kind of standards, some kind of laws, because in internal audit, you're also very sensitive to laws. You're also seeing whether the local, for example, like I said, I'm in a food company, so I have to be aware of food safety laws, but also like labor laws, and these are all the things that I'm looking at. I also get to look at, but nobody will ask a fresher. So they will ask you questions related to, let's say, accounting standards, corporate law, because these are relevant, also taxation. But otherwise, maybe a lot of questions in just general, maybe something to test with your soft skills, management skills, etc. So it's going to be a a very standard interview kind of a question if you're a fresher. If I want to get into FP&A for a top FMCG company, how can we start as a fresher? I realized this, like personally, you can also get into FMCG. Your first role can be FP&A in itself, but usually what I have seen is nobody offers FP&A role to a fresher, right? Because they think that business understanding इतना ज़्यादा नहीं होता है, accounting के बारे में ज़्यादा नहीं होता. Because what do you do in FP&A? You pull up the accounts and say, okay, my profitability was 100 rupees. I have to make a budget, which is like 120. How do I get to 120? So you know nothing about how things are being accounted. You don't know anything about the business. So usually the chances of a fresher getting into FP&A is very less. The most obvious and the most good route to get in through is through corporate finance, which is accounting. Try that, and then you can try your hand in FP&A. That's how I also progressed. And personally, it benefited me taking this route. going to corporate accounts and then going into FP&A. That personally helped me. So I would suggest that. Would diversification being the greatest pro of opting for internal audit? Should you go for? I'm sorry, Khushi, I don't understand this question. Going back to Pulkit, any official contact details which you can share, ma'am? Official contacts, no. I don't have anything at the moment. But if I get to know something, I will pass it on to Parth, and maybe you can get in touch with Parth. Right? Let me know your details, your work experience, what kind of things that you're looking at. Feel free to contact me on LinkedIn, and if any opportunity comes up, I will let you know. Rishabh, I've been in internal audit since 2017. I've heard about investment banking and valuations. Can you provide some info about the same? Is it possible for me to switch from IA to investment banking or valuation? Okay, from IA to valuation, you definitely can, Rishabh. That I will
Hello.
tell you. Yeah, Pulkit, just a second. I'm taking.
Ma'am, my question is regarding with this topic only, valuation and all investment bank. मैम मैं थोड़ा से ग्रुप ऑफ पर्सन्स के साथ में था जो कि स्टार्टअप्स में एज ए एम्प्लॉय के हिसाब से काम कर मींस दे दे डू वैल्यूएशन लाइक प्राइवेट इक्विटी एंड ऑल लाइक टेक व्हाट terms they are being used like tech medical all so वो लोग बोल रहे थे कि इंटरनल ऑडिट बहुत होता है ये होता है वैल्यूएशन होता है इन्वेस्ट सो थोड़ा एक इजीनेस में आप थोड़ा सा बता सकते हैं और साथ में एक और था क्वेश्चन मैडम कि अभी जैसे आपने तो आपके जो ड्यूरिंग द वर्किंग साइकिल आपने कितने सारे ऐसे इंटरनल ऑडिट्स के अभी जैसे आपने पहला हो रहा था कि स्टैट ऑडिट और इंटरनल ऑडिट में डिफरेंस है स्टैट ऑडिट इज लाइक आप क्वालिफाई कर रहे हो रिपोर्ट को बट इंटरनल ऑडिट इज लाइक यू आर फाइंडिंग सॉल्यूशंस फॉर द कंपनी सो आपने आपके तो वर्किंग साइकिल में इतने सारे काम हुए होंगे तो आपने कोई ना कोई ऐसा एक आपको कुछ एक आप शेयर कर सकते थे मतलब जैसे कुछ प्रैक्टिकली आपके साथ एक कोई ऐसा हादसा हुआ मतलब जिसमें आपने कुछ एक ऐसा कुछ हुआ
basically he means to say experience.
Yes, Rishabh.
Basically he means to say in his similar experience or internal audit experience he's actually asking.
Let me answer that question. So I will take valuation first and then investment banking later. So typically valuations mein kya hota hai? You come up with, you have two proposals where a company A wants to buy company B or company B wants to be acquired by company A, and then they're looking for the right amount of investments. Right amount, right? 100 rupees, 120 rupees, whatever it is, that is what you technically do. People who are coming from internal audit background and statutory audit background in articleship have a great advantage applying for a valuation job because one, aapko accounts pata hai. So to arrive at 120, what do you first need to see? You need to first see the balance sheet and you have to assess how good or the credit worthiness of the balance sheet, right? So when you come from a statutory audit background, you're in a position to read the financial statements very well and say, okay, ye theek hai, I understand this, but this, so maybe I can't take receivables 50 hai, so shayad I can't take 50, I have to take only 40, or I can also take 60, right? And internal audit gives you an understanding of the processes. In any valuation, before any valuation is done, first and foremost, something called as due diligence happens. So where a team comes in, audits the process and says, okay, this is what you're publishing in your balance sheet, but reality mein ye hota hai ki nahi hota. So usually in valuations and due diligence, people from internal audit and statutory audit, they get to be picked up very easily. That is in a big four. Okay. But I've coming to an industry, I've had experiences where we don't do project assessments. For example, if we need to, there are two types of things that internal audit can be a part of during any mergers and acquisition. One is before the acquisition itself, we go and audit the process. We go and see if the processes are working properly. We go and see balance sheet mein 100 rupees ka profit hai to 100 hai ki nahi hai. So basically what an external due diligence team does, we also get to do it internally before the acquisition. And after that, after we acquire them, then we go back again and do two things. One is that this is called what is it called? It's called
post merger. post merger acquisition?
You're right. Post merger, it's not a term, but to see how seamlessly integrated both the companies are, because आपके ethics में difference है, आपके working practices इतने अलग है. So the next thing that you go and see is, are the working practices similar? Because if company B has acquired company A, then company A has to follow all policies and practices of company B. तो ये हो रहा है, नहीं हो रहा है, नहीं हो रहा है तो क्या गलत हो रहा है? What are the repercussions? And the second thing that you also get to be a part of is, you prepared a cash flow statement where you said that if I invest 100 rupees and I calculate the NPV, I'm supposed to be making an IRR of, I don't know, 18% in 5 years. So after 5 years, you go back and see, acha, ye tha budget, ye tha estimate, ye tha proposal, ye ho raha hai ki nahi ho raha hai. So this is also an assurance for you to go back to the management and say, aapne ye jo investment kiya, ye sahi tha, ye galat tha. So that it's also guiding them in future decisions. So in internal audit, when the corporate itself, you get to be a part of such projects. For example, the company that I work in, like I said, I know the kind of projects that the next 3 projects, what I'm doing, I come to know. So one of the projects that I will be a part of is one of this huge capex project that is happening. So it's like a 430-500 crore project. I go and say, okay, आप 500 crore में से आपने 200 crore already spend किया है, आप बराबर कर रहे हो नहीं कर रहे हो, what went wrong, what went right? So this is called post capex, post acquisition, yeah, post merger review. So you get to see a bit of everything, what kind of assumptions were taken, what went wrong because the IR same nahi hai. So you get to see a part of that. Obviously, this is something that usually the strategy team does, prepare proposals. You're obviously not a part of the strategy team, but it's the closest that you can actually get to reviewing or seeing what happened during acquisition, a merger, etc. Now, coming back to investment banking is very niche and specific. You want to get in as a CA into this field, you have to go right in as a fresher, and usually it also involves that needs you to do courses like CFA or an MBA. So it's valuations and investment banking are not necessarily the same. It's like Venn diagram mein, they're like common bits, like common overlapping pieces, but it's not the same. So yeah.
Tejas, we'll take the last question and call it a day now.
Yes.
Okay.
I'm doing my articleship in due diligence, so that's great, Nisha. What are your opinions on whether to continue or choose any other field? Nisha, sorry, I don't think I'm in a position to guide you or give you a clear-cut answer on what you need to do next. The only thing that I've realized is talk to people, network, take that leap of faith if you want to try something new. I'm not very old compared to you guys, but like as you sort of start growing in your life, the only thing that will hurt you the most are the regrets, the chances that you didn't take. So network, talk to people, do something that interests you, do something that you find fun, right? And if you need any help, reach out to people who are already in that space.
Pulkit, please stop interrupting. Let her complete first, then you can ask your question. Yeah, Tejashree, continue.
Yeah, so sorry, all of you who are asking me, what should I do? Where should I be? What kind of course or field I should choose? The only thing that I will tell you is, again, talk to people, really talk to people. Meet them for coffee, lunch, or just walk up to them and say, hey, I'm in a very exploratory stage in my career. I don't know what to do. I'm very confused. Can you let me know about your career? Can you let me know about what you do? Can you tell me how day-to-day life will look like in your career? That's important to know, because people will usually tell you only the good bits or only the bad bits. So it's important that you also understand day-to-day operations, kya hote hain, kaise hote hain. Talk to people, really talk to people, see what excites you, what interests you, and don't be afraid to change, right? It's never too late to change your career, your field of thought. Like, people are doing wonderful things, brilliant things at the age of 40. People are becoming presidents at the age of 60, prime ministers at the age of 60. There's no age, right? So do everything right to make it work for you.
Hello.
Yes,
can I now ask my question, ma'am? Because
yes,
I am
I think we're running out of time, so can we make this quickly?
Yes, ma'am. मेरा ऐसा नहीं था कि किसी दूसरे क्वेश्चंस को लोअर या लोअर प्रायोरिटी देना है, but as I am outside my town, so because of the connectivity issues, I I am just making
No problem.
more.
What's your question, Pulkit?
मैम आप कोई ऐसी लिंक या कोई ऐसे शेयर कर सकते हो डेटा, जैसे जहाँ पर अपन को इंटरनल ऑडिट रिपोर्ट्स या ऐसे मतलब फ्रीक्वेंट बेसिस पे आप पढ़ सकते हो, गो थ्रू कर सकते हो, और उसमें
Usually internal audit reports are very confidential reports. It's issued only for the management, and even within the management, sometimes depending upon how sensitive some data is, some reports are, it goes to a very small circle of people. So usually agar 20 jan ko jate hai, in some audits, they're capable of ruining the reputation of the company because it's a gap that you find. So such audit reports are circulated with a very smaller crowd, sometimes only with 1 or 2 people. Right, so usually internal audit reports बहुत confidential होते हैं, easily मिलते नहीं हैं, but you can try looking up online or you can try looking up for formats of internal audit documents. But it's very difficult to find them online.
वेबसाइट कौन से जहाँ पर अपन को मतलब एक पब्लिकली इंटरनल ऑडिट रिपोर्ट्स
आपको नहीं मिलेंगे, पब्लिकली आपको नहीं मिलेंगे क्योंकि बहुत सेंसिटिव और कॉन्फिडेंशियल इन्फॉर्मेशन होता है. So internal audit में आप क्या करते हो? You see a process, you see a gap in the process, and you're telling the management fix it before somebody else sees it. Fix it before your statutory audit sees it. Fix it before RBI, SEBI, they find it. So ये सारे reports they're never published. It's not like an external audit statutory report जो सबको दिखता है मिलता है. Internal audit is very small circulation. So chances of not getting an internal audit report is high.
Hello, ma'am. Ma'am,
is there any? Yeah, Rishabh, continue.
Is there any site or any portal where we can get study material for internal audit? For example,
your either CA website where you have a lot of material content related to internal audit. The other website is IIA, which is International Institute of Internal Auditors. It's a globally recognized body. A lot of people who want to make their career in internal audit, like, so what is your career? Okay, something that I didn't address or talk about. What is your career progression in internal audit if you don't want to move out anywhere else? Right, you start as whatever senior, field senior, you become an assistant manager, whatever the designations are, you become a manager, you become a director, and then you become the chief internal auditor or the chief you're called a CIA, chief internal auditor, who reports directly to the board of directors. So being a chief internal auditor is also like a very prestigious position to be in, because you're not reporting to anybody. You're reporting to the board of directors and you're reporting to an external auditor at the most, right? So it's also a very prestigious position to be in because you're almost a part of the board if you want to have a progression or career in internal audit itself. But in terms of material, look at the ICI website or IIA, which is the globally recognized and accepted body. You can also look up for certification courses, and just like CA, in internal audit, you become a CIA, certified internal auditor. You can look up for that because CIA, it's a degree that is recognized everywhere, irrespective of geography.
I'm assuming everyone's doubts are done. I guess Tejashree, the kind of enthusiasm that you have in replying to the doubts and the amount of doubts they have, we should keep another session just for internal audit FAQs. Okay.
But I'm glad that people are asking so many questions and are open to this possibility.
See,
I really like the enthusiasm.
And the main thing is because the topic of the day is internal audit, right? So there is a lot of vacuum there. There's not much talked about it, which is why. Anyways, we are running out of time. So thanks Tejashree for coming on today's open house. We at Vision C are extremely honored because you had this time. You gave us the opportunity to host you, and we'll be looking forward for this. Guys, you can contact her or Parth on their LinkedIn, and
yeah, Tejashree Prasanna, you'll be able to find me under my name, Tejashree Prasanna.
Yeah. And we'll be guys, please stay in touch. We'll be having open houses for many domains, so hope to see you there. Parth, do you want to say anything for the closing?
Thanks Tejashree, thanks Neet for hosting this wonderful session, and hope to see you guys for other open houses as well.
Thank you guys.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you. Thanks Tejashree. Thanks.
Hello, thank you all.